くぞGenocide Kata!
What's up, everybody? Welcome back. This is Forgo, and finally we're going to be doing a tier list on the Guilty Gear characters and see where they stand as far as the meta is concerned. And as you all saw in yesterday's video, especially with this guy right here, Soul, that he was just way stronger than the #1 red in the game, which is Guinness. Now, I haven't added SS Shizuru to this list because I don't have her leveled up. I really can't do a fair comparison between her and other characters as far as how much damage they actually do. And I do look at survivability and damage kind of combined. I look at the utility of a character, the kinds of dots that they have, all kinds of different things to calibrate, you know, whether I think they should be their #1, #2, #3, what so have you. And remember, this is just my opinion on who the best characters are in the game. So we'll go ahead and bring it up for you guys. And as you guys can see, it doesn't really come with no surprise that Soul here is #1. I mean, he's just godly, guys. That dot explosion that he has, plus all the extra burn damage that he has, is just, it's nuts. I mean, the guy does insanity. It was almost unbelievable the amount of damage that this character could do, especially compared to this monstrous mofo right here. I mean, Guinness is crazy strong. He's super awesome. But, you know, and the thing about Soul versus Guinness is, you know, one, his damage is just way better. Like, leagues above the best character in the game. But also Soul, you know, he does have the core passive where, you know, when he gets attacked, he can stun. He also has stun as third skill. Now, stun isn't as relevant as fear. That's something that Guinness actually is better in PvP wise, especially like whenever you're facing league match, absolute war. Guinness actually has a better CC effect. Fear is #1. There's no real counter for fear, but there's not a lot of characters that have reflex stun or, you know, are immune to stun. I mean, you got Rugal, you got Rudy from the Seven Nights, I'm sorry. You have Shizuru that can reflect stun, Original Zero can reflect stun, Vice can reflect stun. Like, all those characters are a counter to the stun effect, but that's not a lot compared to how many characters we actually have in the game. And I just think overall, especially with the heals, Soul just belongs in #1. Now, this one here, this was a little wacky. Now, by the way, guys, I tested every one of these things that you're looking at. I tested them. I did little damage comparisons where I took the imprint stones off the characters, and then I did a little test with the most optimal card set that I could put on them. And what I mean by optimal is a card set that would be absolutely free in the game. So, for example, if it was a defensive character, you know, I'd probably use in the KS set, or maybe even the new Shizuru set because it is actually free. Or I would just use the Akane for someone like Ino, because that's really going to be about the best set for a character like that, unless you have the Guilty Gear set. Obviously, things change whenever you have the Guilty Gear sets, or you have certain SS sets or BS sets for these characters. Idol Kula set on Leona. Like, there's a lot of different calibrations as far as, you know, what card set's going to be better for these characters and as far as their damage output. But I feel overall, as far as the cards that are always available in the game, this is really where it stands. And Ino, guys, I tested her against Geese. Both my Ino and my Geese are at 5-star, and Ino did over double the damage. I took the imprint stones off both the characters, tried them out in Spider Robot, and she did double the damage. And that's really because Nightmare Geese, I mean, he just can't cancel out of his third skill very fast. It really slows down the damage that he actually does. And something else to keep in mind, guys, is whenever you got like SS and BS characters, their awakened skills last 13 seconds. So whenever you're running through a fully awakened rotation, you actually can do your skills an extra time or an extra 2 times compared to these characters, like the regular fest characters that only have 10 seconds of an awakened skill. 13 seconds, 10 seconds. That's a big difference in damage. And she still did double the damage compared to this guy, and she is definitely stronger than Yuri. Yuri has a better leadership because Ino's actually only applies to Guilty Gear characters. But Ino, I mean, the thing about Ino is, guys, she has great leadership for herself, self-buffing leadership. She's also insanely strong. She has pretty good survivability with the core passive that she has from the Guilty Gears with the decreased damage received. And her damage is really just skyrocketed. I mean, the girl can absolutely solo Lunatic against Nightmare Geese, which is pretty awesome, guys. I mean, that's pretty insane that she can do that. And I do believe she is the best green in the game. Yuri, I mean, has the better leadership, and she is super strong, but all she has is burn damage. And this is where I start looking at dots and, you know, where these dots are applicable. And burn's pretty much everywhere in the game. And even though Soul has burn, right, he's still number one because his damage is just that good. His survivability is just that good. Whereas Yuri, I mean, she's got good survivability thanks to her shield, and she does have really, really good damage, but she doesn't compare to Ino. Ino's damage is just way, way better. Plus, she has shock, and she also has poison. She can be useful against Immortal Nyx. She's amazing against Lunatic, against Nightmare Geese. I mean, she's just a powerful character, and she can buff up some of the most powerful characters in the game. Now we get to the yellow here, and this is where it gets really wacky. Now, I know some of you are looking at this, and you're thinking, what in the hell? You're telling me Ramlethal is better than Keel? Yeah, I am. I tested their damage, by the way, guys. And Ramlethal here does every bit as equal amount of damage as Keo. And that's with Keo having Iori on the damn team, giving him that extra attack from his core effect, right? From his core passive. And Ramlethal still put out more damage. I mean, these characters, you know, they just got all this insane dot explosion, this 5.5 times dot explosion. It's just nuts. And she has double dot. And both her default and 3PG are insanely long. And her default applies Starlight and Darkness. I mean, she's just an insane character. Plus, you can play her in a way where you can always apply either Starlight or Darkness if you play her properly. I mean, she's just... her utility is insane. Plus, she has a PG rate leadership for all the Guilty Gear fighters. She's got self-buffing leadership. She's absolutely nuts, right? I mean, this character has a PG rate leadership for a free-to-play character that everybody got. And this guy's got 30% PG rate in his core, right? I mean, it's just... and plus, he's got a long 3 PG. I mean, she's just insane. Now, I almost really want to put her on top because King, she has Darkness. King's damage is better than Ramlethal. I mean, like I said, you know, King... she can actually do a complete solo against Spider Robot, hit 380 million in one key. Now that's a maxed out King, but I've never seen any character do that before. Never, not one character. So I do think her damage is better, but honestly, her survivability isn't as good as Ramlethal. Ramlethal's got the decreased damage received from her core passive, and I would argue that Ramlethal just has more utility. You know, King's insane, but like insane damage, right? But she's kind of like a glass cannon. Whereas Ramlethal actually has a little bit better survivability, and then both of her default and her 3PG are super long, and then she's got the really important dots with the Darkness and Starlight. I mean, I just feel that, honestly, she should probably be number one. Let me know in the comments how you all feel about that, but I did test her versus these characters, guys, and she is stronger than these three. It's crazy. I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh my God. Like, I even undervalued how strong Ramlethal is. This is nuts. And then we get over to the purple. Now, this was really, really difficult. And, you know, before I had Leona above 0 here, right? And then we ended up getting Baiken. And it was like, where do we put Baiken? Where do we slap her in? Well, here's the thing, guys. I tested my 3-star Leona versus my 3-star Baiken. No imprint stones whatsoever in Spider Robot. And Baiken actually does do more damage if you play her properly. If you apply the bleed from her core passive and then just start applying shock afterwards, as long as you have bleed on the target and then you just start doing your shock skills over and over and over, she does more damage than Leona, at least in the test that I did. But her survivability is not as good because Baiken has this core passive with her shield where she's got to take critical hits and it only works in PvP. She only gets her shield in PvP is what I'm trying to say, right? And that sucks. Now, it's really good for Absolute War and it's really good for League Match. But in the game modes where we get these really great rewards like Guild Raid, Demo Space, and things like, it's just not going to be as good. Now, the fear that she has is pretty awesome. And just like Guinness, I mean, it's the best CC effect. But Leona has fear. She has fear on her third skill, 3 seconds of fear, matter of fact. And Leona has better survivability. She has got better shields. She's a defensive character. She has higher defensive stats. And you can buff up Leona twice as much with your Fame system, right? Whenever you go to the Fame system, you can actually level her up by leveling up defenses, right? Defenses here and attack. You can't do that with Baiken because she's just an attack type character. And Leona actually does have an attack buff based off defense, right? So the higher defenses, the more attack she has. And then, of course, we got all the new card sets, the new Shazura set, the KS set, Mr. Big set, and what so have you. They give you an attack based off defenses. So, I mean, even though Baiken does more damage than Leona, at least from the testing that I did, it's not by a huge margin. It's only by a little bit. And I just think Leona, I mean, it sucks. Leona's only got burn. But the thing is, guys, I mean, she can solo Lunatic if you slap a Shermie option card against Geese. She can absolutely solo Lunatic. I got a billion score yesterday playing with her. I mean, granted, mine is Jack, but she still could do it. So, and it was easier to keep her alive than what it is with Viking. I mean, Viking's insane, and that's why she's number 2. But I just think overall, like all rounded, I think Leona's a little bit better. Plus, Leona's default is a little bit longer. Leona has dot explosion on her default. Viking's default is very short. So whenever you're playing her in like Immortal Dungeons and what so have you, you got to make sure that you're always doing her 3PG. So you got to keep an eye on her when you're playing with her. Whereas with Leona, it's not as much of a big deal. If you miss the 3PG, her default still is a pretty long animation. So it's still going to delay the timer quite a bit. I mean, she's just got some advantages that I think kind of are overall better. Better survivability, the longer default, the dot explosion. And since Viking's damage isn't that much better than Leona, I still feel all around that Leona is still the best. And then we get into the blue, and yeah, I mean, yeah, it's going to be Dizzy, guys. Dizzy's damage is absolutely nutso. Dizzy can go in lunatic against Nightmare Geese, and she can sit there and solo and solo and solo all day, every day. You can do the same thing like with Leona, slap a freaking option card on this girl, and she'll absolutely murder. She does insane amount of crit hits. I mean, especially if you have the Guilty Gear set. But even if you don't, she's still insane. Insanely strong, right? She got the CC effect, whether it's freeze or stun, depending on how many times you hit the first skill. She has the dot explosion, right? Burn explosion and chill explosion. I mean, she's just nuts. Oh, I will say that Ignis, in my opinion, is better for Nightmare Geese against Lunatic. He's just brain dead. Ignis is the only character in the game that can actually interrupt Nightmare Geese's Raging Storm with his default and his 3PG. It just makes him nuts. It just makes him nuts. By the way, a really good combo is having Ignis in the leadership with Dizzy here. I mean, it's just awesome, guys. Plus, Dizzy's got a really great leadership for balanced type fighters. I mean, I just feel like this is where she belongs. And a couple of other little changes that I made in this list is where I slapped in Rugal. I actually switched around a few characters. I did have Rugal above Merlin, but honestly, and I hate to say this because you guys know how I feel about Rugal. He's my boy, man. He's my bro. He's my favorite character from KOF. But I just feel like he's fallen down. His survivability just isn't that good. He's got good damage, but his survivability is not that good. I actually think Mei is a better character than Rugal. Yeah, I think Mei's a better character than Rugal. She's got the decreased damage received in her core. And I'm not taking into account imprint stones, by the way. I mean, the Rugal did get a decreased damage received imprint stone, but it's not as good as Mei's decreased damage received from her core. Plus, Mei's got the chill damage, the freeze. She has an insanely long 3PG and a long default, whereas Rugal, his default sucks butt. It does a grab, it gets interrupted in Immortal Dungeons. I mean, he's good in Guild Raid, but he's not the best by any means. And Merlin here actually has all these multiple dots. She has freeze, she's got self-buffing PG Raid leadership. And I just feel that Merlin is better than these two characters. I mean, Mei's really, really good. And for a free-to-play character, she's absolutely insane. But is she better than these characters? I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't think she's better than Merlin. Merlin also has a long default, long 3PG. I mean, Merlin's insane, guys. She is crazy, crazy strong. I actually think I put maybe a little bit too much value in Rugal's damage before. And I feel like just all around, he just isn't as good as Merlin. I just don't think he's as good as Merlin. And really, I don't think he's as good as Mei. I know. That sucks. I know some of you might, have a difference of opinion in the comments. But remember, this is my boy, man. This is my boy. And I just, I try to be unbiased with these tier lists. I just feel this is where he actually belongs. And I'm actually thinking about dropping some of these. I mean, guys, we're getting pretty flooded with these double S characters. And I'm actually thinking about dropping some characters too, like having some more having some more BS or SS characters in the SS realm, because I just don't think they're really good enough to be in the triple S realm. I'm actually thinking about putting Geese here and Marie in the double S realm, in all honesty. I mean, they're both really, really good characters. And they're really strong, but they're really falling behind compared to these other green characters, right? I mean, you got Kay here, right? I mean, he's falling behind. And then you have Iori and Athena. I mean, they're like, the thing is, guys, like when you look at these characters right here, right? These characters right here. Well, actually, these characters right here, they just get dominated by these other characters. They get dominated big time. There's a huge distinction between the amount of damage that these characters can do compared to these characters. And I almost am thinking about putting these characters at double S and putting Chrysalid at double S. I want to keep Honoka here at Triple S. I still think she actually belongs in that realm. And Marie, I'm kind of debating on whether or not to put her in Double S. And Kay, I'm actually thinking about putting in Double S as well. And also thinking about putting Ramlethal number 1. I just think Ramlethal really just has a lot more utility, and I just think she's better overall in the game throughout all the game modes because of the better survivability, because of the better dots. I mean, she has, King does have darkness, but Ramlethal does too, and she also has Starlight. So let me know how you're all feeling about the tier list. Let me know if you think some characters belong in SS rather than Triple S, or vice versa, whether you think some characters belong on top of a other character or not. And yeah, I mean, the Guilty Gear characters have really, I mean, they changed the meta, guys. I mean, it's absolutely nuts what they've done. Really, in my opinion, like, Saul, Eno, and really, I think Ramlethal as well, and Dizzy all became, in my opinion, the number 1 characters in their respective color. Ramlethal is still debating on whether or not, she's better than King. Let me know in the comments what y'all think about that. And Biken still being number 2 compared to Leona is actually still godly. I mean, they just made a huge impression. I mean, 5 out of the 6 of the characters made it in top tier, which is nuts. What an amazing collaboration. So again, let me know how y'all feeling about the tier list, and I do stream it on Twitch at 9 p.m. GMT+7 time. The link is in the description below, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching. Y'all take care and have a good one. See ya.